Hello and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast. I'm your host, John Jennings. I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of the issues is that we over complexify things. I believe that for the most part, the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. So I like to say I'm a simple man with simple ideas. And so welcome to Simply Business. And today I'm joined by Shawn Ritchie, who is the owner operator of Bluegrass Protection. Shawn, thanks for joining us. I know this is going to be a fun conversation for our listeners because you have certainly a fascinating story. So why don't you just kick off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and who you are and what you do.
Oh, John, I appreciate you having me today. My name's Shawn Ritchie. I started Bluegrass Protection in 2018. I have a military background. Um, Joined the Marine Corps in '96. Separated in 2001 due to some family issues that required me to come back home. Decided I wasn't done, so I got back into the Army Reserve and I finished out my career there. One thing they don't tell you on the recruitment posters is that if you want to get deployed in a hurry, join the reserves. Um, my last tour was Joint Special Operations. I was not Special Forces. I want to clarify that immediately.
Yeah.
I was more of a borrowed support element, if you will. I was a logistician for a Tier 1 team. And there's not really an instruction book for that, so it's a sink or swim kind of job. And you learn a lot about yourself in a year, however long your deployment is with them. So I'd thought about starting businesses. That solidified my decision. Yep, this is going to happen. So came home, went to a school in Colorado, got credentials as an executive protection specialist, started Bluegrass Premier Protection. We're a private security company out of Louisville, Kentucky, servicing the entire state and subcontracting regionally.
Awesome. Well, first, thank you for your service. We talked a little bit. I'm from an Army Reserve family myself. We don't have any Marines in my family, but we have a bunch of Army Reserve folks. So certainly appreciate your service. And so tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start your own business. What was that kind of the initial spark that led you down this kind of entrepreneurial path?
Well, as a reservist, you have to do the dual citizen things. You've got your weekend requirements, your 2 weeks in the field when you're not deployed, and you also have to hold a regular job. Um, that becomes difficult depending on, I guess, the operational tempo of your unit, how much extra they need you to be there, plus how often the employer is willing to let you go. Yes, they're technically federally required to let you do whatever you have to do. However, the reality of that situation is not always how it plays out. And frankly, I think I just got tired of making other people way more money than I was making. Right. I mean, be it through quality assurance or sales or I don't know, whatever it is you do, somebody else is getting paid more than you.
Yeah.
There's I don't know, there's several little, I don't know, cliche little tidbits that kind of led me in that direction. The Navy used to have a commercial, right? If your life was a book, would anybody want to read it?
Hmm.
That one was okay, let's go have some adventure, right?
Yeah.
And then, there's a little motivational poster. If you're not willing to build your dream, somebody's always willing to hire you to build theirs. Okay.
Right.
So now we're back to I'm tired of making other people more money.
Yeah.
And it was something different. It kind of naturally flowed with my already existing skill sets. 22 years in the military, executive protection, bodyguarding. It's okay. That can flow, and it's a good building block. I'm sure there's certainly nuances in the EP world that you don't learn in the military. The military is very hard skills and infantry tactics and things of that nature, whereas executive protection is very soft skill oriented. Are
Mhm.
you a people person? How's your etiquette? Can you speak in front of people? Are you familiar with the difference between business and business casual? The military doesn't teach you that stuff.
Right.
So sometimes there's a steep learning curve, sometimes not, but it's fun. Um, it's different. Like one job to the next. There's always so many different. It doesn't, you might be sitting on a container yard in a car with a yellow blinky light for a week, and then the next thing you know, you're escorting a senator through a rally.
Yeah.
You never know what tomorrow's going to bring or what the next phone call is going to have you doing.
Right. Yeah.
Keeps it fresh.
So, boy, I'd love to just hear some stories. We probably won't have time for that, but I've heard a few because I shared with you earlier. I've worked with some law enforcement people who went into that field, and they always have some interesting stories, and I'm sure you do as well. Um, what has been the biggest surprise, kind of the unexpected aspect of being a business owner? I mean, that's a big change. I know going from military, to business ownership is a huge leap.
It's the military hits you fast, right? So, it's mission, and it seems like there's never a break, and then you're done. There's a rest and reset and retrain, and you're kind of scheduled, right? You're going to deploy one out of every 5 years unless there's a need for you to stay over or they're shorthanded over here. This industry, it could be 4 months before you get a day off, and then it might be 3 months before the phone ever rings again.
Mm.
Or if you really want to just kind of trick the cycle, plan something with the family. The phone's going to ring.
Of course.
So that's
Yeah.
it's been our experience thus far. I don't know. It's usually we die off in the winter. We're picking up in the spring. We're usually pretty busy in the summer, lead into the fall, and then everything falls quiet during the winter, usually. But then you still have to find the work-life balance. It's your business, but it's also your brand. You're responsible for all of it now. It's not like, oh, well, that's the boss's problem. Oh, I'm the boss.
Right. Yeah. So I usually, that's actually a question I often ask is how do you balance work life? And I always joke about, it's not really a joke, but there's no such thing as work life balance, especially for a business owner. It is at best an 80-20 balance, right? But
Absolutely.
yes, but how do you deal? I mean, I I I could not imagine going 3 months without a new client or something. That would just completely freak me out. So tell me about the mindset of dealing with that.
Out of the gate, not only with bluegrass, so I was an independent for the first couple of years to get my feet wet, and then I launched bluegrass. And interestingly enough, I stayed really busy as an independent, but as soon as I started my own company, the phone just stopped ringing. It was like suddenly I was competition, right?
Interesting.
So I I don't know. I had to rely on a couple of network contacts that I had made, and they kept us in sub. I know it's an individual job, but what I'll do is I'll sub it to your company, and then you're just the only one on the payroll. That's fine, but it'll help build your profile as a company if you word it right. So, a little wordplay just to get a couple of details on the business profile, and you get your Facebook page together, and you get your social media together, and you get your website together, and hopefully Google does its thing, and eventually you start showing up on the first page, and the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. I guess there's a couple apps out there like Thumbtack and Bark, and those are hit or miss based on the type of work you're into, but they keep you busy in the downtime. um for a while, we could plan to do whatever we wanted to. Once we had 3 or 4 guys, that were contracting with us, like they would take a bulk of the work, and then you just get your couple of dollars an hour off the top, or your 5 or 10 or 15, whatever covers your insurance, and then gives you a little bit of something.
Mhm.
So as long as we had the phones on us, we could do whatever we wanted to with the family, as long as we were answering the phone to handle issues or set up the next contract, and then just pass it along through a messaging app to the guys. Hey, so when you're done Wednesday, Thursday, I need you here instead. And it just, I don't know, you kind of figure out a routine, I guess. It's chaotic, but you find some organization for the chaos, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Organized chaos is a
Yeah,
common
yeah.
common
Sounds
thread
good.
among small business owners, I find. Um, so obviously that kind of balance of workload is was a challenge, and you mentioned marketing. Any other challenges to getting your business off the ground that new business
Um,
owners might be faced with, that you might share?
Yes. If well, business owners in general, I mean, I guess it depends on your industry. If you have a bar, you need certain licenses. If you sell cars, you need certain licenses. Well, the same things in security, depending on the state you're operating in. Kentucky is, well, you just have to register an LLC and have a concealed carry permit. They don't really have a regulated security industry per se, but we're like the only state that doesn't for the most part,
Oh, wow.
which if you don't do your homework, you learn the hard way. You start volunteering for all these jobs and putting your name out there, and they're like, "Do you have your license?" I'm like, I've got my credential. Like, that's not the same thing. Well, then what do you mean? And then now you're studying all these different state laws for all the states around you or where you're wanting to work or willing to work. And pretty soon you're having to free up the income to get licensed in all of these other states, be it as an individual or as your company or both. And then are you going to make your guys pay for their own licenses since they're working for your company, or are you going to offset that cost? And it's a never ending learning experience. And we're almost 7 years into it,
Hmm.
but I don't know, keeps it fun, keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I started our business about the same time. We talked a little about this earlier. What was it like going through COVID? How did you manage through through that
Um,
experience?
well, see, and here's a double-sided edge to my industry. As a private security practitioner and executive protection specialist, if we're doing really well as a business, that means our clients are not. Does that make sense? Because if they were
Yeah,
doing really
expand on
well,
that for me. Yeah.
so for example, around about the time COVID broke out, there was about a 4 or 5 month delay, and then there was a string of police involved shootings that set a good portion of the country up in a tizzy.
Yeah.
And you ended up in a lot of civil unrest in several locations. So, unfortunately, civil unrest kept us very gainfully employed during COVID.
Okay.
So we were out with lots of news crews, local, national, cable, podcast niches, not podcasts, but like Spectrum, right? Before
Yeah.
they're just, they're not really, they're a cable provider more than a cable network, but they have their own, news stations and stuff. So we were kind of all over the place with that
Yeah.
through like Louisville.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Unfortunately, Louisville, we had quite a bit going on there. I was
I think
one
we
of
went 73 days without a day off.
wow.
I was
Okay.
calling guys from other states and having to put them up in hotel rooms. We were so busy, but
But
that's how we navigated COVID.
yeah. So uh and yeah, my industry is a little bit different, but also similar, right? When COVID first hit, it was everything shut down. And then everybody
Right.
was trying to figure out, okay, how do we navigate this new normal, as we called it? And so I suddenly had clients come, at me from everywhere going, help me figure this out. So uh, I didn't have to have a concealed carry, but I was
Perfect.
I was actually with a client down where some of the riots broke out, and I got out of there just as they were starting to happen. It was
Oh,
kind
good
of a
for you.
scary day. Um, so, I could, like I said, I could listen to stories all day long. This fascinates me, but uh, share a little bit of a glimpse into the future, like what you know you've developed a company, you've got somewhat a steadiness, a steady routine of least ups and downs, and you know what your patterns are. But if you could look into the future, what do you think a year or two out? Where are you hoping to take this thing?
Well, initially out of the gate, it was all subcontracts and one-off short terms here and short terms there. And we landed a long-term contract that lasted almost 2 years we were a sub, but it was a substantial contract.
Mhm.
And the stability of it is okay. Well, we need to focus on long-term contracts. Now, that's our goal. Now we have a few clients that they could be considered long term, but there's not enough work to keep everyone that wants to work with us busy all the time. So it's a balance of, all right, if we get this many people can get part-time hours, this many people can do full-time at this place and this place. So what we're looking for in the next couple of years would be more long-term clients, but hopefully the kind of work that keeps people interested, right? Because you've got, I mean, when you think private security, it's you've got everything from, I guess everybody likes to call us mall cops. But then you've also got the aspects of the suit and tie with the earpiece and the, four pointing around the really important people or the wealthy folks or the entertainers and the celebrities and all of the people your insurance company doesn't like to hear about. We're probably going to try and move towards something a little more government focused. I guess we're going to make more bids on government contracts. That's kind of its own full-time job. So when we're really busy, I don't really have time to fool with it. Mm-hmm. But, we put a couple of bids out. We've got some practice into how the packets get filled out and all the nuances on how to word it and where to send it, and how many copies have to go where, how much it costs to file it. And, or, I can just get a call from the RMS or the Phillips Group or Allied Universal and be like, hey, we need 5 guys. Okay, that's way easier. So,
yeah,
we're, I mean, frankly, I'm trying to put together a package to get some actual state representatives on the horn. Like, this is what we can do for you.
Yeah.
Most state reps are very law enforcement centric, and as well they should be. They serve a very important role and they're good at their job, but they're kind of overwhelmed. And most of them at the moment are kind of short-handed. So we could, within reason, fill that gap or at least add an outer perimeter of, protection, or there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
I guess without throwing out too many trade secrets or exactly what route to go.
Right. Interesting. It was just, I appreciate all this and it's really interesting. And I know we're all going through different journeys, but there's so many parallels between any kind of startup industry. If you were to talk to someone, and let's just kind of keep it within your world, talking about someone who's maybe coming out of the military or coming out of law enforcement or something like that, it's thinking about starting some kind of business. We'll assume not a competitor of yours. we'll keep it. But what kind of advice would you give someone who's going from that structured environment where they got a lot of rules to follow? You have very set, standards, if you will, very, very methodical day, to suddenly going, okay, now it's your world. The world's your oyster, but you got to make it. What would you, what kind of advice would you give to those folks?
We've had a few of these conversations. We've actually helped a couple of companies just like ours get their start. I would say first and foremost, are you willing to invest in yourself? Right? Because everybody coming out of the military thinks they can be this, and this. And don't get me wrong, you have the skill sets, you have the base foundation, but there are nuances that you need to sharpen up on, right? So are you willing to go to those classes? Are you willing to go to the public speaking forums? Are you willing to go to the week-long courses that focus on specific nuances of the industry you're looking at? Have you done the research? Do you have the relevant degree or education? And even if you don't have the degree, have you watched enough YouTube videos to at least make somebody think you know what you're doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I say that because we're actually trying to diversify. We're in the process of building right now. I got to wait for it to thaw out up here, but we're building an indoor gourmet mushroom farm, right? Because everybody's got to eat, and you never put all your eggs in one basket. I could add 50 different wings to bluegrass, but it's still just bluegrass. Mm-hmm. So what else can we do to bring in income, right? What else are you good at? What else would you like to be good at? Do you have the discipline to get up and do it yourself? Do you need somebody watching over you? Do you have that person? Are they going to charge you for it? Mm-hmm. And secondly, I don't know, do it. I mean, there's I don't know, man. If worst case scenario, you can go get a real job if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. I mean, the worst that happens is you fail, but I always tell my kids that fail is your first attempt in learning.
Yeah.
You
Great
know,
advice.
the old Japanese proverb, the master's failed more times than the novice has ever tried. So it's, I mean, worst case scenario, you go take a job you don't want for a while. Do you recollect, recenter, figure out where you're going next? It's easy to make money.
That's awesome. And it is so true. And yeah, almost every entrepreneur's first dream didn't doesn't pan out. It usually is that second, third iteration of it. Sometimes it's just variations, and sometimes it's a completely different business, you know.
Right.
So
It's
that's
I like to
yeah,
tell guys I stuck with the private security because I was making more money doing this on accident than I ever was anything else on purpose.
that's yeah. And I guess that's great, but also kind of sad because you were serving our country and not making your way you probably are doing now. So well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I appreciate again what you do. I think it's fascinating, and I've enjoyed meeting you and hearing a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. And I hope folks got some value out of this. If folks want to connect with you, or who knows, maybe there's somebody listening that can help you make the right connections, or maybe they need some protection. So how can they find you? How can they connect with you?
We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a website, www.bluegrassprotection.com. We're not hard to find. We're on Google Maps in the Kentucky area, depending on how the algorithm works in your area.
Right.
You
Awesome.
can find me on LinkedIn, Shawn Ritchie.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time. I appreciate it. And for those listening, hopefully you've been inspired to go out there and as Shawn said, give it a try. The worst that can happen is, you just have to go find another job. But the best can happen is you can find a very fulfilling and purposeful career doing what you want to do. And you don't have to complain about your boss because you just have to look in the mirror, right? That's the good part of it. So thank you again for your time. And I look forward to our next episode when we're going to bring on another business leader that will inspire you.
Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate your time.